Every living thing on Earth follows a pattern so reliable we rarely question it. A creature is born, it grows, it weakens, and eventually it dies. From microscopic bacteria to towering elephants, aging is written into the code of life itself. But what if one animal quietly slipped through that rule? What if there were a creature whose cells refuse to grow old, whose strength does not fade with time, whose fertility does not decline, and whose body, at least in theory, could go on indefinitely? It is not hidden in some remote jungle. It is not a mythical beast. It is the common lobster. Beneath the cold, shifting waters of the North Atlantic, lobsters carry one of the strangest biological secrets on the planet. Unlike almost every other animal ever studied, they do not appear to age in the conventional sense. From the moment they hatch to the final day of their lives, their cells continue dividing with astonishing efficiency. There is little evidence of the slow cellular breakdown that defines old age in humans and most other creatures.
To understand how extraordinary that is, we must first understand aging itself. In humans, aging is unavoidable. Our cells divide again and again, but each division comes at a cost. The protective caps at the ends of our DNA, structures known as telomeres, gradually shorten. When they become too worn down, cells can no longer divide properly. Tissues weaken, organs slow, muscles lose strength. The entire biological system begins its steady descent. We have all seen what time does to even the mightiest creatures. Consider the legendary lion Scarface of Kenya's Masai Mara. In his prime, he was a formidable predator, a dominant force who survived countless battles. Yet in his final days, he moved slowly, his once powerful body reduced by age. That visible decline, strength turning to fragility, is aging as we know it. But in the case of the lobster, something remarkable happens. Lobsters continue producing an enzyme called telomerase throughout their entire lives. In most animals, telomerase activity fades after youth, allowing telomeres to shrink and aging to begin. Lobsters, however, keep this molecular repair system switched on. Telomerase rebuilds and maintains the protective ends of their DNA, allowing cells to divide again and again without the usual deterioration.
Imagine the plastic tips on a shoelace. Once they fray, the lace unravels. Telomerase, in effect, keeps those tips intact. The genetic material remains stable. The cells continue functioning. In laboratory studies, even tissue taken from very old lobsters shows surprisingly little evidence of age-related decline. This has led many to describe lobsters as biologically immortal. The phrase is not entirely accurate, but it captures an extraordinary truth. Lobsters do not seem to die of old age in the way mammals do. Their fertility does not sharply drop off. Their organs do not systematically fail simply because of time. Remove predators, remove disease, remove accidents and human interference. In theory, a lobster could continue living. So why don't they?
The answer lies not in biology, but in physics. Lobsters wear their skeletons on the outside. This hard exoskeleton is a suit of armor, protecting them from predators and environmental damage. But there is a problem. The shell does not grow. It is rigid and unyielding. To increase in size, a lobster must shed its entire shell in a process known as molting. Molting is an act of vulnerability. The lobster absorbs water, its body swells, and the old shell cracks open. It pulls itself free, soft and defenseless, and waits while a new, larger shell hardens around it. When lobsters are young, this happens several times a year. Growth is rapid, energy is abundant. But as decades pass and the animal grows larger, molting becomes increasingly dangerous and exhausting. The shell thickens. Breaking free requires immense strength. The energy demands soar. And here lies the paradox. The very mechanism that allows lobsters to grow and effectively avoid traditional aging is also what ultimately threatens their survival.
If a lobster cannot successfully molt, it becomes trapped in its old shell. Movement becomes restricted, infection can set in, stress overwhelms the body. Without a new shell, growth stops, and without growth, survival becomes uncertain. Molting is also the only window during which lobsters reproduce. After a female sheds her shell, she is soft and receptive. A male deposits sperm into a specialized pouch inside her body, where it may remain stored for months. She shelters in his den while her new armor hardens. Nearly a year later, she can release up to 100,000 eggs into the ocean. And yet, fewer than 1% of those eggs will survive. Most are swept away by currents or devoured by predators. From that drifting cloud of life, only a handful will grow into the armored giants that fascinate scientists. Those that do survive can achieve astonishing sizes. A 50-year-old lobster may exceed 70 centimeters in length and weigh over 20 pounds, hundreds of times larger than it was at birth. To grasp how extraordinary this growth is, imagine if humans followed the same pattern. A newborn woman measuring roughly 20 inches and weighing just over 6 pounds would, by age 50, stand hundreds of meters tall and weigh thousands of tons. Such a body would be physically impossible to sustain. If a lobster cannot successfully molt, it becomes trapped in its old shell. Movement becomes restricted, infection can set in, stress overwhelms the body. Without a new shell, growth stops, and without growth, survival becomes uncertain. Molting is also the only window during which lobsters reproduce. After a female sheds her shell, she is soft and receptive. A male deposits sperm into a specialized pouch inside her body, where it may remain stored for months. She shelters in his den while her new armor hardens. Nearly a year later, she can release up to 100,000 eggs into the ocean. And yet, fewer than 1% of those eggs will survive. Most are swept away by currents or devoured by predators. From that drifting cloud of life, only a handful will grow into the armored giants that fascinate scientists. Those that do survive can achieve astonishing sizes. A 50-year-old lobster may exceed 70 centimeters in length and weigh over 20 pounds, hundreds of times larger than it was at birth. To grasp how extraordinary this growth is, imagine if humans followed the same pattern. A newborn woman measuring roughly 20 inches and weighing just over 6 pounds would, by age 50, stand hundreds of meters tall and weigh thousands of tons. Such a body would be physically impossible to sustain.
And in the end, that is precisely the challenge lobsters face. They do not deteriorate in the conventional sense. Instead, they grow until growth itself becomes the problem. Each molt requires more energy than the last. The risks multiply. The process stretches from months to years. Eventually, some lobsters reach a point where the next molt simply does not happen. They do not choose to stop. Their bodies are simply unable to complete the process. Without shedding their shell, they become confined within it. Joints stiffen, shell disease may develop, muscles weaken not from age but from strain. Internal systems struggle to support a body that has pushed against its physical limits. Autopsies of very large wild lobsters reveal signs of stress, scarred shells, deteriorating muscle tissue, calcified joints. Not the predictable decay of aging, but the consequences of an organism that has grown too large for its own architecture.
There are rare giants that capture human imagination. In 1977, off the coast of Nova Scotia, a lobster weighing more than 44 pounds was caught, an enormous specimen estimated to be around a century old. Others of remarkable size have appeared from time to time, survivors of decades beneath the sea. One particularly famous lobster, known as George, was believed to be around 140 years old when caught near Newfoundland and briefly displayed in a New York restaurant. Public concern led to his release back into the ocean. Yet even in such extraordinary cases, marine biologists observed that immense size often signals proximity to the end. A lobster that large is likely nearing the point where another successful molt is improbable. Despite their reputation, most lobsters do not live for centuries. On average, males live roughly 3 decades, while females may survive for about 5. Their immortality is not endless life, it is the absence of a built-in expiration date.
They do not fade the way we do. They reach a ceiling. In the quiet darkness of the ocean floor, a lobster's life is a balancing act between biology and physics. Its cells are prepared to keep going. Its DNA remains resilient, but the demands of molting, the burden of size, and the limits of energy eventually close in. In the end, even a creature that seems to defy aging cannot escape the fundamental laws of nature. For the lobster, the rule is simple and unforgiving. If it cannot molt, it cannot survive.